Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. There are a couple of things I wanted to touch bases. This will help inshallah, because these are a hadith that you will hear a lot of people always mention as evidence. The evidences are authentic, but unfortunately the understanding of the hadith that they have is disaster. And this disaster basically encourages people to follow the falsehood and to leave the truth. So that's why clarification of this hadith, which are hadith of the Bukhari and Muslim, very authentic hadith, is very important. First is a very famous incident. This is the narration in Sahih al-Bukhari on the authority of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. This is a evidence that many people, they used to say that disagreement, all the disagreements are good, and this is the hadith that has been used for them to say that if there are two opinions that are contradictory, both opinions can be correct. That's the conclusion of the hadith that you will hear today. And as I said, that the hadith is very authentic, no doubt about it. It's hadith in Bukhari, but the understanding is a disaster. A disaster. And I'm saying this because you will see sometimes imams of the masajid, those who will come and say, I did my alim and fazil course from the madrasa and this and that, and I am mufti and I am this and I am that. We understand that. But when you hear him explaining a hadith like this, you understand what kind of mufti he is. It's not mufti, is a muftari. Okay, and it will be your fault to go and choose this person as a scholar and a leader and to understand the deen from him, because whatever is left for you is going to basically shatter everything to the ground. This is not, this understanding of the hadith that you will see is contrary to the whole deen. The understanding they have because of this hadith, which is an authentic hadith, okay? So the understanding is different, but they have a disastrous understanding, and they hold on to this opinion because they can teach the people the falsehood and they can move them away from the truth. So what is the hadith? Ibn Umar said on the day of the Ahzab, the Prophet ﷺ said to a group of Sahaba, none should offer the Asr prayer until you reach the place of Banu Qurayda. Okay, very famous hadith. So the Asr prayer became due for some of them on the way. Meaning, like the Sahaba, they're going, Asr prayer becomes due. And if they don't pray the Asr prayer on time, by the time they reach Banu Qurayda, it will be Maghrib time. So they will miss the Asr time. Okay? Some of those said, we will not offer till we reach Banu Qurayda. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, don't pray Asr until you reach Banu Qurayda. So they said, we are not going to disobey the Prophet ﷺ. He said, don't pray Asr. And he knows, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Revelation. While some others said, no, we will pray at this spot. For the Prophet did not mean that for us. So they understood the Prophet's statement as that you should go and pray the Asr prayer Banu Qurayda if there is time. Don't delay going to Banu Qurayda because of Asr prayer. But if, they understood it this way, if you see that you're going to miss the time, then you pray it on time during the way. Understood? So two different groups, they prayed at a different time. One of them, they prayed on time during the way, going to Banu Qurayda, and this is the Jewish tribe, the place of the Jewish tribe. And the other group, they prayed when they reached Banu Qurayda and Asr prayer time was over. This is the hadith. Okay? So when they came back, the Prophet heard what they did, and he did not accuse or question or oppose anybody. He kept quiet. That's basically what has happened. From here they concluded what? They concluded that disagreements are all equal and allowed, and if they are contrary, it is fine. But does this mean that? First of all, is this the only incident that happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ or not? Many incidents happened where the Sahaba did something and the Prophet did not approve it. Like for example, a group of people, they went to the Prophet ﷺ's house, and the hadith is very authentic, Bukhari and Muslim, hadith of Anas, and they asked the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, how is the Prophet ﷺ ibadah at home? So they described, so one of them, And these are Sahaba, right? Yes or no? Scholars or not scholars? For us, they are scholars. Okay. One of them, they said, I'm never going to sleep at night. I'm going to continuously pray. Their argument is this. So, see, they said Allah has forgiven his previous sins and past sins, everything, and future sins. Whereas we are not like that. And the hadith says they thought this is little. And this is like, it shivers, it gives you goosebump. They thought the Prophet's action is not enough. This understanding of those Sahaba, correct or not correct? Huh? Incorrect. Right? The Prophet didn't approve it, as you will see. A man said, so from the Sahaba, I'm never going to sleep at night. The other one said, I'm never going to stop fasting and continuously fast. And the other one said, I'm not going to get married. And the another narration in Sahih Muslim said, I'm not going to eat meat. 4 people took all of these decisions for the sake of Allah. Not to show off, but to worship Allah. When the Prophet ﷺ came, did he oppose it or not oppose it? He opposed all of them. So we tell these people, why are you obeying this one hadith as if this is the only thing that has happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ? The Prophet opposed everybody and said, the one who doesn't follow my sunnah, فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. That is the hadith. فَمَنْ رَغِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. The one who turns away from my sunnah is not from amongst me. Many incidences like this. As-Sahabat al-Kiram had an opinion and they practiced the opinion and they were wrong, and the Prophet corrected them vehemently. He was very angry at all of the 4 of them. He didn't say, MashaAllah, great job, you learned from my sunnah and then you had these opinions, I really appreciate, MashaAllah, amazing. He didn't. He said, you are not from amongst me. You are not my followers then. Meaning like, no, from that specific aspect. He didn't say you're kuffar, a'udhu billah. No. He said, from that aspect, you're not following the sunnah. So you're not from amongst me. Okay. We know that the Sahabat al-Kiram, some of them, they had made ijtihad during the Battle of Uhud. The Prophet told them, do not move from this place. Even if you see us getting killed, do not move from this place. And they made ijtihad. They thought we are winning. They said, Ghanima, Ghanima. And we want the war booty, and they left that place and Allah gave them a defeat. Because Khilaf Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam not allowed. Okay. So now how do we understand this hadith? We understand this hadith that the Prophet here gave them excuse. Because of the way the command came to them. It is very possible that in this specific incidents, the matter was made flexible for the Sahaba. It is possible. Although some of the scholars, they say, amongst these both groups, one of them prayed on the way, the other one prayed when they reached Banu Qurayda. Who is correct? They said one of them is correct. Who is that? He said, some of the scholars, they said, those who prayed on time. Those who prayed on time. There are other scholars, they said, no, it could be that in this specific, khususiyah, specific incidents, both of the groups, they had excuse. Because the way the Prophet gave them the command that do not pray Asr until you reach Banu Qurayza. Make sense, brothers? Now, you take this hadith and you apply it in a disastrous way, you're going to be end up with a calamity. For example, you know that in many group, for example, we come from the countries, in South Indian, Southeast Asian countries, we have the madhab which is very strong over there is the Hanafi madhab. Okay? And there is nothing wrong in it, as long as they follow it the right way. And inshallah we're going to talk about this in the next topic, which is, what is this issue about la madhabi? Who are they? And etc. etc. We can talk about that inshallah. So we have this position that if you are a Hanafi, you should not raise your hand except only one time in the Takbiratul Ihram. Okay? It is a very famous position. Okay? And some people, they will not budge from it at all. But we have mutawatir narration. Mutawatir, that the Prophet ﷺ used to raise his hand, and the Sahaba, before going to ruku, after coming out of the ruku, and when standing up from the second rakah to the third. This position, the Prophet never stopped raising his hand. So now, the Hanafis over there, they taught this, which is what? There's a difference, right? A group is saying you should raise your hand, because it's sunnah. A group is saying you don't because you are Hanafi. And one of the evidence they will teach you is this hadith. They will say, look, Sahabat al-Kiram, they did two different things. And the Prophet didn't oppose them. So what that has to do with this? The Prophet always used to raise his hand. And you're telling me don't raise your hand. What this has to do? Did the Prophet say don't raise your hand? The Prophet raised his hand and he said, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray as you have seen me praying. Now, is the raising of the hand before ruku, after ruku, obligatory, not obligatory? It is mustahab, highly recommended. But from the aspect of Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli, pray as you have seen me praying, we must follow all of these things so that our prayer matches the prayer of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But you see, sometimes these kind of disastrous conclusion basically clouds the mind. So why do I don't have to raise my hand? Because you see, you are Hanafi. You are Hanafi. Okay, I'm Hanafi. Fine. So what's the problem? So Hanafis don't raise their hand. So who said that? Amongst the Hanafis, there are scholars who said raise your hand. They're minority, but they did say. They said because we have the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we will not make khilaf of it. And this is the true Hanafi way. Okay, so now we come to the topic which is called, what is this madhab issue? Who are the la madhabis? And so on and so forth. Some people, they label us or the masajid like this to be la madhabi. They'll already give you an injection. You know, you're going to the masjid of the la madhabis, be careful what you hear. Basically just go there like a zombie and as if you didn't hear anything, come back, so you don't learn nothing from them. And this basically teaching you to reject the truth. Maybe they don't understand it, but that's exactly what it is. So that is la madhabi. La means no, madhabi means no madhab. So they basically claim that we disrespect all the scholars of the madhabs. We deny all the madhabs and we just read the Quran and Hadith and understand it our way. And we have certain scholars in Saudi Arabia and we just follow them. This is the kind of picture they give about this masajid. Why they give this? To their benefit, so that they can, if they are Hanafi, so that they can make you follow those whatever they call the Hanafi way blindly. So that they will never be able to expose yourself to the right way to understand the religion in a very simple manner. Okay. So now we tell the people that what is madhab actually? Imam Abu Hanifa, let's just focus with one scholar and it is applicable for us all scholars. Shafi'i, Malik, Ahmed, whoever, inshallah. Imam Abu Hanifa was a big scholar. There is no doubt about this. Anybody who denies his scholarship, he himself is ignorant or maybe he is a deviant person. Okay. So he was a great scholar. And he learned from his mashayikh, Masjid Ibrahim and Nakhai or whoever they were before him. The knowledge came through them and he learned from them. Rahmatullahi alayhi. And he taught his students what he learned. And he always taught them, إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيثَ فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِ. If a hadith is authentic, then it is my madhab. So basically their general message was, you come and learn from your teacher, but you learn with evidence. And when you see that your scholar or your teacher's opinion contradicts evidence, don't take your scholar's opinion. Follow the evidence, meaning follow what the Prophet ﷺ said and what is in the Quran clear. That's exactly what they taught. And as you see that in many cases, Imam Abu Hanifa's position is correct. Although Jamhur, they contradicted him. And in many cases, his position is wrong. Whereas the Jamhur who contradict them is correct. Like for example, the famous position he is wrong in many things. Like many other scholars are wrong in many things. And this does not remove them from any scholarship. All of them are great scholars for us. Imam Abu Hanifa's position was that you can give the Zakatul Fitr in the form of money. And this is what the Hanafis, they follow blindly. Okay. And the Jamhur said no, it should be given in the form of food, for example. And Jamhur's position is correct. Because of the hadith of Ibn Umar, hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, hadith, the practice of the Prophet ﷺ, the practice of the Sahaba, and the statement of Ibn Abbas, very authentic that it should be given in the form of food and it should not be changed. So, what do? We say Imam Hanifa is our Imam. Okay, but he erred because he's a human. It is not lazim that he has to be correct in every single opinion. He tried his best, he did so. Okay. All these people, we tell them, look at the Sahabat al-Kiram. Is there any comparison between Sahaba and the later generation? No comparison. Amongst the Sahaba who learned from the Prophet ﷺ directly, they knew the Quran. Sometimes they had an opinion that when you go and match with the Quran and the Sunnah, it's opposite. Like the famous position is the incidence is the position of Imam Sahabi Abdullah ibn Abbas. The hadith is in Bukhari, Muslim, very authentic. Okay, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, at one point of his life, he used to consider there is no tayammum, meaning nobody should be given any opportunity to do tayammum under any circumstances. Okay, this is position now. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Khudil Qur'ana min arba." Take the Quran from 4, and he always used to start with Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Okay, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud had this position. Whereas the Quran talks about tayammum and the Sunnah is clear about tayammum. So the other Sahaba, they questioned him. They said, how you are saying tayammum? Because the Prophet did this, this happened to us, the Prophet allowed us to do tayammum. They didn't accept from him. But when they asked him, they used to keep quiet. The only thing he said, if he said that it is allowed to do tayammum, everybody will do tayammum and they will reject, or they will become lazy and they will not even do wudu. This was his argument. So sometimes the scholars, they have this fear, maybe, that fear kind of overcomes them, and they give a fatwa which is wrong. What are we supposed to do? Don't follow it. Follow the evidence. That's how you follow the madhab correctly. So for example, if somebody says, I'm the follower of Abu Hanifa, there is nothing wrong in it. Provided you follow the madhab with proof, evidence. If it is contrary to the evidence, you don't follow, then you are fine. You can call yourself Hanafi, you can call yourself Shafi, you call yourself Maliki, you call yourself Hanbali, you can call yourself nothing. You can say, no, I'm a Sunni Muslim, I don't like this status. That's fine too. Because you are exactly following the madhab of who? Abu Hanifa. They are all the same. Their methodology same. But the school of thought they developed. Okay, school of thought they developed. We cannot deny that. Okay. Then the Mutaakhirun, a group of people who came later on, and they started concocting a way. So for example, they made a book like this. A book like this. They said this is the Umda for the Hanafi madhab, kind of the Bible. Anything and everything this book says, we go back to it. It says halal, halal, haram, haram, wajib, wajib, mustahab, mustahab, this, that. This is the problem that happened in the later generations. Until the Ammi, they started saying, I am Hanafi, I have no clue what Hanafi madhab is about. If you say you are Hanafi, you need to know what you mean by Hanafi. If you mean by Hanafi that I am completely ignorant, I don't know what it is, and somebody told me how to pray and I just pray like that, this is not who Abu Hanifa was, by the way. And on the day of judgment, he is going to disown you, and it is not going to be a problem if he disowns you, but it will be a problem if the Prophet disowns you. A big problem. Because our ta'alluq is not with Abu Hanifa. Our ta'alluq is with who? Rasulul Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Allah Ta'ala told us to go to the scholars. Yes, we go to the scholars. We go to Abu Hanifa, we go to Shafi'i, we go to Malik. We go to the scholars. We learn from them, but we are not muta'assib. And that's what we mean by do not follow blindly madahib. We are not saying all the madahibs are wrong, everything is wrong. In fact, many times, right now, we spoke about the Eid Salah. Did I say there is only 5 scholars in the whole world? Albani, Ibn Baz, Ibn Uthaymin. And these are the Saudi scholars. You are not supposed to go to anybody else. Did we say any of this? Nothing. We referred it back to all the scholars. Jamhur said this, some of the scholars said this, and their names are mentioned, Abu Hanifa, Shafi. So why you think we are not madhabi? We are not madhabi. We are Sunni. Sunni, the ones who follow the Sunnah of the Prophet. Then we are going back to the evidence. This is the way of the Abu Hanifa. So if you are so loving to Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, why you don't follow his way at all? That's why some of the scholars say, today if Abu Hanifa is brought back to life, and he sees these people who call themselves Hanafi, he will not understand anything what they are doing. Some people, for example, somebody dies. And like for example, today when the uncle was asking, we have a tradition in our country called Chehlam or Kulkhani. 4 days, on the 4th day, we do a certain kind of Milad Mahfil for the dead person. And we call Chollisha also. On the 40th day of the person when they die, we do these things. Okay? This is the tradition of our, Allah knows how long people have been doing this. Okay? And somebody say, can we do this? No, you cannot do this. Why? We are Hanafis. We Hanafis, we do this. It's okay. Abu Hanifa used to do this. There's nothing wrong. So why are you saying I'm Hanafi, I do this? Don't attribute it to the people. They never did this thing. Did the Prophet did on the 4th day any celebration? on the 40th day? How are you going to answer Allah? And if your father told you to do 4th day and 40 days, don't say my father told me I should obey my father. No, you should obey Allah, the Lord of your father. And He didn't allow us to do these kind of celebrations, death anniversary or this or that. Even if the father and the mother do that, as good children, we should not do it, and actually this will be better for our parents. Why? Because if the Prophet said, if somebody calls somebody to something evil, right? If I call you to evil and you do that evil, right? I will get the sin also. So let's say that I told my son that when I die, on the 4th day you gather people and do all this sort of thing that the people do, right? And I die. Allah wishes. And on the 4th day, somebody comes and tells him this is the bid'ah. But he says, but my father told me emotionally and he begged me and I am his son. Shouldn't I follow the tradition? No, he should not. Because if he does it, there will be, let's say that it will be 1 ton of sin, right? That 1 ton of sin will come to my grave. Are you doing any favor to the dead people by claiming I'm Hanafi and this and that? You're not doing any goodness to them. In fact, if you listen to those people who you label them as Lamadhabi, Wahhabi, they're teaching you the right thing. They're telling you don't do it. So now you at least saved your father and mother 1 ton of sin. Isn't that true? Okay. Now my son does it, and then his son does it. So all these years they have been doing tons of sins. 4th day, 40th day, 4th day, 40th day, 4th day, 40th day. Who gets it? Guess what? The champion who taught this, thinking that this is something that is connected to whatever. So this is what's called blindly following the culture and things, and this is what we are against. We are not against the scholars. All what we are saying is we have to take these scholars as our umda. We have to go them, but with a antenna which is working. Not like a zombie. The sheikh said this and we follow this. No. Antenna which is working. And with this methodology we will make millions of errors still. Millions of errors. Like for example, the sheikh today mentioned something very important. He said that the scholars they differ about what is the Yawmul Hajj al-Akbar. Is it the 9th or is it the 10th? If you go to the books of the tafsir, it is true. But we have the authentic hadith, which is in Bukhari in Mu'allaq form, but the chain of narration is connected. That the Prophet said, this is the Yawmul Hajj al-Akbar, and he said it is the which? The 10th. So the ishkal is removed. Now we do not worry about the scholars who said 9th could be the Yawmul Hajj al-Akbar because we have evidence. Makes sense, inshallah, brothers? This is what's called following the proof, and this is the methodology of Abu Hanifa. So if somebody comes and tells us, is there any authentic Hanafi? The authentic Sunnis are the authentic Hanafis. If there's the authentic Shafi'i, the authentic Sunnis, the authentic Shafi'i. Because this methodology of all of these scholars saying, إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيث فَهُوَ مَذْهَبٍ. Whatever hadith authentic, this is my madhab. That's why Imam, for example, An-Nawawi in many cases, Rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Nawawi, as we know that he was from the scholars of the Shafi'iyya. Shafi. He would sometimes mention something and he would say this is the madhab of Imam Shafi. And somebody would come and say, what are you saying? Shafi had a different opinion. He said, I know his opinion was different. But his madhab is what? إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيث فَهُوَ مَذْهَبٌ. And what we know that the hadith is authentic, so this should be his madhab. Whereas his opinion was what? Different, because maybe he didn't know, or maybe he has a misunderstanding of one of the hadith, or an understanding of the hadith, and so on and so forth. So those people who come and call us the madhabi, they have no understanding of actually what the madhab is. Madhab is a way of teaching, a school. Right? For example, you study under Abu Hanifa's school, right? And you take the title Hanafi. No problem. It's a title. Like, you live in Austin. You're Austini. You're Austini. You live in Bukhara. So you're Bukhari. You live in Medina. So you're Madani. Or Makki. Okay, title. It's a title to show respect to your teacher. Nothing more, nothing less. If it adds any color to the religion, it is going to be Jahannam. Because we cannot put any color to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we Masjid Ibrahim, we never teach, because we try to follow. We are not scholars, we are not angels. We try to follow the Quran and the Sunnah the way of the Sahaba. We never say these scholars we don't respect them. We have to respect them. And if we do say, don't follow us. We are deviants then. If you are talking bad about Abu Hanifa and Shafi'i and Malik and Ahmad, we are deviants. These masajid should be abandoned. People should not listen to this kind of speakers. So we are not like that. But this is basically, as you know, that game that the people play. Because when people are ignorant, they can sell it. And they can scare tactic. You know, you are traditional Hanafi. What are you going? You are going to the Allah. That is a masjid which is Wahhabi. You don't know what Wahhabi is? Tawbah, Madhabi people. These people, they do not respect anything. Oh, no, brother. I just go there, pray, and I can come back. I'm not going to listen to anything. This is programming. I'm not making up something. This is constantly. While we are talking now, maybe in some of the houses here happening. This kind of talks. May Allah guide them. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I'm going to tell you, for last 25 years, we have seen changes amongst the people beyond imagination. I used to remember some of the brothers, they used to give us so much hard time. In the sense that every single khutbah, they used to come and criticize. The same people, 180-degree change. To the extent that they would come and ask questions now. Is this bid'ah? Is this hadith authentic? Isn't that amazing? It's amazing. So people are graduating. And that's the barakah of the knowledge. The ones who takes it will receive the barakah. The one who rejects it, maybe today he will reject, but we have high hope, inshallah, that before they meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will correct. And there's a lot of other things to cover, but inshallah, another day we will do that. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Yes.
So, going back to that, we do Eid prayer.
Eid prayer.
So there are two opinions.
Two.
Hadith. One says that it's mustahab, and the other one says wajib.
Wajib.
So, and they are both authentic hadith.
Okay. So
how do we know which one to pick?
Right. So the brother is saying that, we talked about the Eid Salah, that a group said it's wajib, a group said it is mustahab, and both the opinions are contradictory. Are the hadith authentic for their proofs? The hadith are authentic, but the understanding is where we now have to focus. Those who said it is obligatory, their proof is the hadith of Mu'atiyah. Mu'atiyah's hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, it says that the Prophet ﷺ commanded the women in the state of menstruation to come and witness the Eid Salah, right? And we know that for the women, in normal circumstances, they're praying 5 times prayer, but it is not even obligatory for them to come to the masjid. So he said that the Prophet commanded the women in that state to come and witness, which means it is wajib. And they said, some of them don't even have hijab, proper jilbab. He said, okay, then let her borrow from her sister. Now this is something. So they said, if it is to this level for the women, so what about the men? It's wajib. Okay. The other scholars, those said mustahab, recommended, they agree with this position. But they say, but we have other hadith, the hadith of the Bedouin, which says the man who come and said, the Prophet ﷺ, how many times obligatory prayer? The Prophet said 5, right? And the man said, I'm not going to increase anything from it. This is their umdah for using as evidence to bring the hadith, this hukum from the wujub to mustahab. You see? So they're saying, we understand it is wajib, but we have this evidence, so now it pushes it down to mustahab. So we tell them, okay, but there are so many evidences about fasting too. Other than the 30 days of fasting, which is the fasting of Ramadan, there are other fasting which are obligatory. What are we going to do with those? Because the same hadith also says, I'm not going to do any more extra fasting, right? Isn't that true? Yeah, the same. So, if you cannot do that to the fasting, you cannot do that to the prayer too. So what we understand the hadith of the Bedouin is that we have the 5 times obligatory prayer. And then we have some occasion that can make a prayer obligatory upon you.
Like Jummah.
Huh?
Like Jummah prayer?
Like the Jummah prayer, they do not disagree with that. Like, for example, when you enter the masjid and you're supposed to pray 2 rakat before you sit down. Jamhur ulama, they said it is mustahab, and the same argument. But we say no. This is a condition that has happened that made the prayer obligatory. And we say, is it prayer daily prayer or yearly prayer? Okay, so where is the comparison? The Prophet is talking about the 5 times daily prayer, and the man said, I'm not going to increase anything on top of it. Now we have this evidence about the wujub of the prayer. Then we have the evidence of the Eid prayer. So there's the contradiction. We say, okay, 5 times prayer is obligatory. And now we have the 2 Eid prayer, the occasional twice, the yearly. We have clear evidence that it is obligatory to addition. So those who say it is obligatory, they understood this as addition, not as contradiction, to bring it down. Those who saw it a contradiction, they pulled the obligation of the Eid to mustahab. You see? So that's where we have to understand. Now, some people might say, well, it makes sense to me. What Jamhur said makes sense to me. Okay. Nothing we can do. Then it makes sense to use mustahab.
They will be correct.
Remember we mentioned that the overall picture to Allah. So if it is wajib, they're correct. If it is mustahab, they're incorrect. Let's say that mustahab is what to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the hukum to Allah. Now if they landed on mustahab, they're correct. And those who landed on wajib, they're incorrect. But now let's say that the decision to Allah is wajib. So the one who said wajib is correct and the one who mustahab is incorrect. We have to strive and ask Allah at the end of the day to guide our heart to the truth, connect ourselves to the scholars, learn the proofs and evidences, and just strive like this as much as possible. As they say, 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20. We are not going to be able to reach the bullseye, hit the bullseye every single time. If the scholars couldn't do that, we will not be able to do that too. But that does not mean that we should have a different methodology. Our methodology should be same as the methodology of the scholars. Try our best to learn and keep on reviewing and revising and reviewing and revising and ask Allah to guide our heart to the truth. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah. Yes.
So we have Sahih Hadith compiled now, like all the Sahih books we have. During the time of the Imams, for Imams, do they have also the access to all these Hadiths, like compiled together? But is it possible that they may not have access to all these Hadiths, at least some of the Hadith?
Right.
Like based on whatever Hadith is available to them, they give.
Right. So the brother is asking that, nowadays we have the books of the hadith, but the hadith are compiled, sahih and da'if and so on and so forth. In the old time, was it like this, accessible to all the scholars? Was it accessible to some of the scholars or not accessible to some? First of all, the hadith that is preserved of the Prophet ﷺ, right, that reached us today, was it there in the time of the Prophet ﷺ or not? Yes. Was it there at the time of the Tabi or not? Yes. Atbai Tabi or not? In the time of Imam Ahmed or not? Bukhari or not? Okay. So the compilation of the Sunnah of the Prophet started day one. Whatever Allah wanted. Now the people, they say, is the Sunnah of the Prophet preserved? Yes. 100% yes. Okay. Is everything about the Prophet's life preserved? Yes or no? No. So that was okay, then that means that the religion become incomplete. So we say no. Whatever Allah wanted to be preserved, it got preserved. Allah decided. So that knowledge is constant. It didn't increase, it didn't decrease. But yes, it is true that some scholar didn't have access to it. Right? It's possible. Some scholars didn't have access to it because it was regional. The hadith traveled to different lands and came back and forth. Some scholars, like for example, the famous incident Imam Malik didn't know about washing between the toes, the wudu. So when he was asked, he said, they don't have to do it. So one of his students, Ibn Wahab, Abdullah ibn Wahab, he, after the majlis was over, he went to Imam Malik and he said, but I heard this from so and so and so and so, and he mentioned the narration. And he said that the Prophet used to do that. So Imam Malik then changed his position. And he used to do the khilal between his toes after that. You see? So, even today, a scholar might not know a hadith. Or he might think the hadith is authentic, but actually it is weak. Or it is weak and it is authentic. And vice versa. Right? These challenges will always, Allah will challenge us with. But the total pool is preserved. And you are correct that even the hadith reaches a scholar. What is the guarantee that he will understand it? That's why the Prophet said that it is possible that the one who is the container of the information will narrate to somebody who is better understanding than him. That's why we see sometimes a scholar faqih and his student corrects him and his student is correct and he is wrong. The teacher is wrong. But the teacher is the one who taught him that. The teacher is the one who taught him that. This is exactly what the Prophet said. that I can't exactly remember the statement. وربما حامل الفقه ليس بفقيه وربما حامل الفقه ليس بفقيه. And perhaps the container of the fiqh is not faqih. Who is the container of the fiqh? The one who knows the kitab and the sunnah. A lot of people, they understand the ayah. Like for example, they will say that the best nights of the year is the last 10 nights of Ramadan. What is their evidence? They say, وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ. And by the Fajr and by the 10 nights. So they say this is the proof that the 10 nights of Ramadan is the best nights of the year. We tell them, okay. And وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ, which 10 nights? Allah is saying, and by the 10 nights. Did He say, وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ fi Ramadan? He didn't say that. So for us to say that this general statement in the Quran is specifically referring to Ramadan, what do we have to have? An authentic hadith. And we have nothing. So those who say that the best nights of Ramadan, the best 10 nights of the last 10 nights of Ramadan are the best nights of the year, have nothing in the Quran and nothing in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to support their position, except their argument that Laylatul Qadr is in that night. But the Laylatul Qadr is just one of the nights. And actually the Prophet's statement refutes them, because the Prophet ﷺ praised the 10 days of Ramadan, and that includes the night. Right? The nights of the Laylatul Qadr are the better than the nights of the Ramadan in general. But now if you compare the 10 nights of the first 10 nights of the Dhul Hijjah are better than any other nights, including the nights of Ramadan. All nights. Except Laylatul Qadr, because now there is a comparison. You need to have a Laylatul Qadr in the first 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah to compare. You cannot compare the apple with orange. You see, when I hear these kind of things, it's just frustrating sometimes, because you have to focus. You're teaching people. You have to focus, you have to look at the evidence, and just grab things from somewhere and teach people. It's not going to work. So the evidence is contrary to them. And we tell them that you're telling us that you're stripping of the reward and the virtue of the first 10 nights of Ramadan because of Laylatul Qadr. And then you're saying that the nights of the 10 nights of Ramadan are better. Did the Prophet ﷺ say the last 10 nights of Ramadan, the deeds are more beloved to Allah, the deeds are more rewarding to Allah, the deeds are more purified to Allah? Did He say anything like this? He didn't. But He talked about the 10 days of Ramadan. So in 10 days of the Dhul Hijjah. So you're stripping of the virtue of these 10 nights, comparing apple with orange. What is your proof? Because there is
no, the practice, like the process of to strive in the nice 10 nights. So that's what
the striving of the 10 nights was because of the Laylatul Qadr.
To catch, but they think that this striving in 10.
That's wonderful. The striving doesn't give us the proof that every single thing that we do on the night is more blessed, more virtuous, more rewarding. You see now? So now they are basically denying or denouncing the virtues of the 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah, is stripping it completely off. So these nights has no virtue now. Zero. This is a disastrous conclusion. So that's why we are saying, now, it's something we have to understand, that this position, that if somebody teaches, he is teaching it from scholars that we highly respect. Alhamdulillah. Understood. But we are not muqallid. Because we come to Masjid Ibrahim, because the Sheikh said this, because the brother said this, because of this. Maybe what I'm saying is wrong. Refute. Don't follow it. But refute with respect. Refute with adilla, proof. Not with understanding. Proof, evidence. Present it the nice way. That's the best thing to do. Make sense, inshallah? Did I answer your question? Alhamdulillah. Okay. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.